On May 30th, 2025, a father in Washington state picked up his three daughters from their home. Paityn was 9, Evelyn was 8, Olivia was 5. The visit was supposed to last a few hours, court-ordered, routine. He never brought them back. 3 days later, his truck was found abandoned at Rock Island Campground in Chelan County. The girls were inside the campground. He wasn't. What followed was the largest fugitive manhunt Washington state had seen in years. It would last more than 3 months, and it would not end the way anyone expected. This is the story of an active father, 3 daughters, 1 campground, and how, in the end, only one of them was buried by family. Wenatchee sits in the rain shadow of the Cascade Range, a small city of about 34,000 where the Columbia River bends through orchards and basalt cliffs. It calls itself the apple capital of the world, the kind of place where people leave their doors unlocked and everyone knows whose kids are whose. Travis Decker grew up here. He was 32 years old. He served as an infantryman in the United States Army for 8 years, leaving active duty in 2021. He'd been trained in navigation, survival, and operating in rugged terrain. People who knew him said he loved the mountains. According to authorities, he had once lived in the backwoods entirely off the grid. Online, he presented as what the media would later call an active dad. Hiking photos, camping trips, a man who seemed to live for his daughters and the outdoors. But court records paint a different picture. A year before the killings, Decker's ex-wife, Whitney, sought to restrict him from having overnight visits with the girls. In a petition to modify their parenting plan, she wrote that his mental health had worsened, that he had become increasingly unstable. She told the court he was often living out of his truck. Decker contested the new plan. He fought it in court for months. The parenting arrangement remained in place. Paityn was in 4th grade. She was the oldest, and by most accounts, the one who looked after her sisters. Evelyn was in 3rd. Olivia, the youngest, had just turned 5. On May 30th, Travis Decker arrived at Whitney's home in Wenatchee for a planned visitation. He picked up all 3 girls. The visit was court-ordered, and he was supposed to return them by 7 o'clock that evening. 7 o'clock came and went, then 8, then 9. At 9:14, Whitney called the police. She would never see her daughters alive again. The Wenatchee Police Department issued an alert the following morning. An Amber Alert followed. Travis Decker's 2017 GMC Sierra pickup, dark-colored, was flagged in every database in the state. But Chelan County covers nearly 3,000 square miles. 87% of it is inaccessible by roads. The Cascades swallow sound. Finding one truck in that landscape is like searching for a pebble at the bottom of a river. On June 2nd, a Chelan County Sheriff's deputy was checking campgrounds along Icicle Road, a narrow Forest Service route that winds 17 miles into the mountains west of Leavenworth. At approximately 3 in the afternoon, the deputy located Travis Decker's GMC Sierra. It was parked, unoccupied. Additional officers responded to the scene. They found the bodies of Paityn, Evelyn, and Olivia near the truck. The autopsy determined that all 3 girls died of suffocation. Their wrists had been bound. The manner of death was ruled a homicide. Travis Decker was not at the campground. He was not in the truck. He was not anywhere the deputies could find. Within hours, the search for Travis Decker became a manhunt. The Chelan County Sheriff's Office called the FBI. They called the U.S. Marshals. They called every agency that could put bodies into those mountains. More than 100 officers from federal, state, and local agencies deployed into some of the most rugged terrain in the Pacific Northwest. The search would cover hundreds of square miles of backcountry, across mountains, alpine lakes, and forests so dense that in places the canopy blocks out the sky. They were looking for a man trained by the United States Army to survive in exactly this kind of landscape. And in the first week alone, the search cost more than $2 million. The geography of the search was the story. Chelan County sits in the heart of the North Cascades, Grindstone Mountain, Icicle Creek, the Enchantments, places where hikers go to disappear on purpose and sometimes don't come back. For a man like Travis Decker, with military survival training and years of off-grid living, these mountains were not an obstacle, they were home. In the days after the discovery, search teams deployed helicopters, fixed-wing aircraft, K-9 units, drone teams, and ground crews across hundreds of square miles. The FBI closed multiple campgrounds, hiking trails, and roads in the Leavenworth area. 1 week after the girls were found, a hiking party reported a lone person in the Enchantments area, someone ill-prepared for trail conditions. Tracking teams moved in. Near Kolchuk Lake, they spotted an off-trail hiker who ran from a helicopter. More searchers and a K-9 unit were called in. They tracked a man believed to be Decker many miles south to the Ingalls Creek trailhead near Peshastin off Highway 97. Then the trail went cold. The calendar turned. June became July. On July 1st, the Chelan County Sheriff's Office released a critical forensic update. Bloody handprints found on the tailgate of Decker's truck had been matched through DNA analysis to a profile that investigators believed was his. It was the first physical evidence beyond the girls' bodies that directly connected Travis Decker to the crime scene. But knowing who did it and finding him are two different things. By mid-July, officials announced they were scaling back the search, citing a decrease in leads and tips. The manhunt had not produced a single confirmed sighting since the Enchantments. Then, on August 1st, investigators released a detail that changed the tenor of the case. 2 separate bags had been placed over the girls' heads. 5 days later, the Washington State Crime Lab confirmed DNA profiles matching Travis Decker were found on the plastic bags and on cable ties recovered from the scene. This was not an act of desperation. This was not a moment of crisis that spiraled. The bags, the cable ties, the binding, each detail pointed to a level of preparation that is difficult to say out loud. On August 23rd, the U.S. Forest Service announced that the entirety of Rock Island Campground would be closed to allow the FBI to conduct an ongoing investigation. FBI Special Agent in Charge William Mike Harrington, out of the Seattle field office, led a 2-day grid search of the area around the campground. By August 28th, they concluded the operation. 1 day later, bones were discovered in the area near the campground where the girls had been found. They were sent for analysis, and the manhunt entered its final chapter. The search had lasted the entire summer. In September, during the 4th grid and drone search of the terrain around Rock Island Campground, federal and local law enforcement crews found what they had been looking for in an area that had not been previously searched. The remains were found on the slopes of Grindstone Mountain, less than a mile from where his daughters had been discovered, but 1,200 feet above them in elevation. Between the two sites, thick vegetation, dense woods, and the steep mountainside. According to the sheriff, the remains included part of a spinal column, a femur, and feet. They were decomposed and scattered, likely by animals. Searchers also found a shirt, shorts, and a bracelet matching what Decker was last seen wearing, and a can of chewing tobacco, which he was known to use. On September 24th, the United States Marshals Service filed a court document declaring Travis Decker dead. DNA testing, expedited by the Washington State Patrol Crime Lab, confirmed the identification within days. The Chelan County coroner announced that a full autopsy could not be performed. The remains were too decomposed. There was no clear indication of how Travis Decker died. No weapon was found near the body. Whether he took his own life or succumbed to the mountains he knew so well may never be known. There would be no trial, no testimony, no verdict. The charges of 3 counts of aggravated first-degree murder and 3 counts of first-degree kidnapping died with him. For the families of true crime cases, the courtroom is supposed to be the place where the story ends, where someone stands up and says what happened and why, where accountability takes a shape you can point to. This case doesn't have that. What it has is a campground, a mountain, and 3 little girls who never came home from a visit with their dad. Paityn Decker was 9 years old. By all accounts, she was the protector, the one who looked after her younger sisters. Evelyn was 8. She had visited a flower shop in downtown Wenatchee with her mother just 2 weeks before she disappeared. The shop owner, Cindy Gonzalez, remembers the visit. Olivia had just turned 5. In the days after the girls were found, the people of Wenatchee did what small towns do. They showed up. Business owners started a fundraiser. Thousands of dollars were collected for Whitney Decker, the girl's mother. And on the trees downtown, ribbons appeared. Green for Olivia, pink for Evelyn, purple for Paityn. Months later, the ribbons were still there. On June 20th, the community held a celebration of life for the 3 sisters. This case asks questions that don't have clean answers. A mother filed a petition. She told a court that the father of her children was becoming unstable. She asked for the overnight visits to be restricted. The system heard her, and the arrangement stayed in place. We don't know if a different ruling would have changed anything. We can't know that. But the question hangs in the air of every family court in this country, and it will keep hanging there because the one person who could answer it is buried on a mountain in the Cascades. The phrase active dad appeared in nearly every headline. It is a phrase that means something specific in the age of social media. It means photos of hikes, posts about weekends, a curated version of fatherhood, visible to everyone. What it does not mean is that everything behind the photos is true. Paityn, Evelyn, Olivia, 9, 8, 5. We say their names because the story is theirs, not his. Travis Decker hid in a forest he had taught his daughters to love. He died there alone. They did not. This is Unsolved Cinema. We tell the stories nobody wants to hear because nobody else will.